As we age, we start to lose muscle mass. It's a natural thing. But what's a way to start to get more muscle mass? Resistance exercise. Well, it's not really heavy. These are just models, but if you think about it, there's got to be a way to stimulate your muscles into growing larger. If you can stimulate your muscles into growing larger, you've got more muscle mass to burn off that fat, all right? So by gaining muscle mass, you burn off the fat. So we naturally lose muscle mass, so instead of losing it, right, we want to try to keep the muscle mass there, right, so we can help burn off that fat. For example, what if you started out at 160 pounds, and after 5 years, you were up to 200 pounds, right? Does that mean that person gained 40 pounds of fat necessarily? What do you think?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. What he could have done is started out at 160, went to 200. What if he lost 20 pounds of muscle mass, right, in the course of that gain? So he actually lost 20 pounds of muscle mass. So he started out at 160. Losing 20 pounds of muscle mass would be just like he was 140 pounds. And then he went up to 200 pounds. So instead of gaining 40, he really gained 60 pounds of fat. You see? So the reality was, as he started to lose muscle mass, the fat increased, right? The fat just kept increasing. So the less muscle he has, the easier it is to gain fat, right? The more muscle you have, the more difficult it's going to be to gain the fat, because there's always muscle mass to do what? Burn off the fat. You ever see these bodybuilder guys? They eat 6, 7, 8 meals a day just to keep the energy that they need. Now, does that mean you have to be a bodybuilder guy? No. But it does mean that you can use the same concept of keeping more muscle mass, right, to burn off the fat. Okay? So very simple stuff. Well, exercise, but not just moving around, trying to do some kind of resistance exercise, giving your muscle stimulation so that it goes beyond the call of duty, right? So that you try to build up your muscle and keep the muscle mass there, so it can help you lose the fat that you want to lose.
Well, what about walking?
Well, walking is moving around. We might call that aerobic exercise, right? But you really want to build some muscle mass too. Walking really doesn't build very much muscle mass, meaning you can start walking and then you say, well, it only took so much muscle to do that, right? Swimming, things like that, right? But eventually you build up to a point where you're walking, you're swimming, you're doing those things with a sufficient amount of muscle. But if you wanted to gain more muscle, meaning there's only so much resistance that you can get from swimming or from walking. So you eventually, exactly, the weights you can monitor. You can say, well, I did 5 pounds this week, and I'm doing 10 pounds in 2 weeks, and 15 pounds, and 20 pounds, and so on, right? But by getting up to from 5 pounds to 20 pounds, well, you didn't do it without gaining any muscle, right? You probably gained quite a bit of muscle as you progressed in your strength, right? With your increased strength went increased muscle mass. And that increased muscle mass continues to burn off the fat, right? It stays with you, and you also look better when you have more muscle mass, okay? Right, so try it out. Gain muscle, lose fat.